The question is, have you stayed too long? Staying in a job too long can have disastrous impacts on your mental and physical health. And it's important to evaluate if you've been in a job too long, if you've maybe overstayed your welcome, if you've outgrown a role or an opportunity, a company or a position, and really assess if it's time for you to move up or out of a role. I'm Ashley. I'm the lead mentor with Mentor Me, and today we're going to talk about warning signs that you stayed too long in a job, in an industry, with an employer, in a position, and how you can sort of recognize those warning signs, recognize that you stayed too long, and pivot and transition out of that role. Gone are the days, right, from our baby boomer parents where we're staying, with organizations 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Most of the women that I serve are, finding and securing roles and transitioning out of those roles, between 5 to 7 years. So if that's not true for you, if you've been in your current job, 8 years, 12 years, 15 years, and you're sensing some dissatisfaction, if you're sensing that you may not be being paid at the same level as other people who are in similar roles across other organizations or other industries, if you feel unsettled in your work, if you feel dissatisfied, if you feel like you're not fulfilled in your work, that may be a sign that it's time to transition. And I think that the biggest piece of fear that women experience when it comes to transitioning careers is like this fear of I don't want to seem flaky. I don't want to seem like a job hopper. I want to, show that I believe in loyalty. And so I don't want employers to see me as flaky. So I'm going to stay in this job that I'm in, forever so that I'm not perceived as flaky or unreliable. But the truth is that in today's society, right, in this century, if you will, employers expect that, job candidates have, moved around, up and around in their organization. And in fact, sometimes for some employers, it can be a deterrent if you've only had one job or if you've only, moved up in one organization over time. So it really is important that you are being intentional about how you're positioning yourself in the labor market, and that you're not staying too long in a job with an organization, in a position, in an industry, so that it sort of puts a wet blanket on your ability to grow and develop your career over time. Over the course of me serving hundreds and thousands of women over the last 5 years, one of the things that I've seen is that the biggest way to increase your earning potential is to find and secure a higher level role or transition to another organization. If you're with the same organization for 10, 15, 20 years, and you're only getting those standard merit increases of 2, 3, at most 5%, you're really capping your earning potential, right? You could probably see a 30% increase in your salary or a 45% increase in your salary if you just looked outside of your organization and found and secured a similar role or maybe even a higher level role with a different organization. So I think that if earning more money, if having more impact, if, securing a higher level salary is a priority for you, then staying too long in a job is a real threat to that goal, right? It's a real threat. And I think that it's hard, though, to sort of recognize when you stay too long, how to recognize if you're at a threshold where, I should just stick this out and I should persevere, through some challenges in this organization, or if it's time for me to make a shift. So here are some sort of warning signs or some red flags, if you will, to help you identify when you've maybe stayed too long or when you're approaching that threshold. And I'm going to be sharing a graphic on this on my feed later. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, make sure you follow me there, because it's a great place to see my content, both live and video, but also I often will post accompanying graphics to my content as well. So let's talk about the mental health implications or indicators that you stay too long. So number one is that you started to second guess your skills and competencies. If you find yourself constantly being like, well, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can take on that project. I don't know if I should really do that. I don't know if I should apply for higher level roles. I don't know if I can, take on this work. If you find yourself constantly second guessing your skills, your competencies, your credentials, the knowledge that you have, if you feel pressured to like, oh, well, maybe I should just settle. Maybe I should just sit in the back. I shouldn't say anything. I don't want to seem like a nag, or I don't want to seem like a problem, right? If you constantly are having those internal battles with yourself, that's likely a sign that you stayed too long, right? Because in an organization who values you and your expertise, they will affirm your knowledge. They will affirm your talent. They will ensure that you know that you're doing good work, right? And so if you find yourself constantly second guessing your skill set, that may be because you're in an environment that causes you to second guess it, right? You're in an environment that invites you to question what you once knew to be true about the value of your skill set and the value of your expertise in your industry. So if you find yourself constantly second guessing yourself, it may be a sign that you stayed too long in this organization, that you stayed too long in this role, that you've overstayed your welcome in this industry, and it's time to make a shift, right? The second sort of red flag in the mental health space to recognize that you stayed too long is if you started to doubt the impact of your own work, right? If you over the course of your career, let's say you work in public service, right? You work in maybe a nonprofit space. And over the course of your career, you've helped children and families and communities. You know that you've really driven change. You've raised money. You've connected people. You've done really great work. And you know that. But lately, you're starting to doubt the impact of your work. You're like, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't even that big of a deal. Or, I don't really feel like I'm implementing change, or, this isn't really driving results, right? If you have started to significantly second guess the impact of your work, if you were starting to devalue your work, or maybe others around you are starting to devalue it, maybe you're hearing from your supervisor, you could be doing more, or we need to push the envelope, or, we need to really drive change in a way that doesn't reflect your values or honor the hard work that you're doing, that may be a sign that you've overstayed your welcome in this role and in this organization, right? It may be a sign that you've stayed too long, right? That you've stayed so long that your good work is diminished because it's almost an expectation at this point, right? Like they don't even see the hard work that you're putting in. It's basically like, oh, that's a expectation. And of course, that's going to happen, when she's on the team or whatever. So, making sure that if you have trouble valuing yourself, if the organization you're in has trouble valuing you, that's a sign that you stayed too long. And the third mental health implication is that you started to question your own worthiness, right? If someone says you do a good job and you're like, oh, I don't know, or, someone praises your work and you say, oh, it's nothing. Or if you don't feel like doing your work is worth it, if doing good work doesn't feel worth it anymore, and you're struggling to see the value of your work and the worthiness of your work, then that's a sign you stay too long, right? Because it's kind of like in the medical field. They say that if you work in the medical field and you have a patient who dies, and you don't feel that, it's just like another number, another person dead, another, person to the morgue. If it doesn't impact you, you've stayed too long. You're numb. You're not impacted by the real life circumstance of the life and death aspect of your work. And even if your work isn't life and death, right? Like if you work in education, if you work in transportation, if you work in consulting, right? If you do different type of work, but you're not impacted by the work, if it doesn't move you, if it doesn't drive you, if it doesn't excite you, sometimes annoy you, if your work is emotionless, if it has no impact on how you show up in the world, that's a sign that you stayed too long, right? Because you're not invested in that work. That work is not fulfilling. That work is not driving impact. It's not driving change. You're literally just showing up so you don't get fined. And you do not want to be in an environment like that when it comes to your career. You want to do work that feels meaningful, that feels connected, that feels like it's serving people, a work where you're being paid well and appropriately compensated for your expertise, right? Those things are really, really important. And if you are not feeling like that in your work, then, it's a sign that it's time to move on, right? That's a sign that it's time to move on, that you stayed too long, right? So again, 3 mental health impacts, 3 mental health red flags as a sign that it's time to move on. Impact number 1 is that you started to second guess your skills and competencies. You don't trust yourself. You don't value your own intellect and your own expertise. You let other people second guess you. Number 2, that you started to doubt the impact of your own work. People tell you you do a good job. You're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if it's really impactful. I don't know if I'm really driving change. I don't know if this is even moving the needle, right? This is, if you are having those conversations with yourself when it comes to your work, that's a sign that you've overstayed your welcome in that role with this organization, in this industry, and it's time to move on. And red flag number 3 is that you started to question your worthiness, right? You question if you're worthy of the raise or the promotion, if you're worthy of leading a team, if you're worthy of being appropriately compensated, right? If you're struggling with worthiness, that might be a sign that you stayed too long. Or even if you feel like, oh, it's not worth it to try and find a new job. I'll just, stick this out till retirement, or I'll just wait till my boss dies or my boss retires before I transition, right? If you have kind of given up on even advocating for yourself and really positioning yourself as the expert that you are, that's a sign that you stayed too long, right? Because you're moving into complacency, you're moving into just settling, and that's never a good place, right? Like, that's never where you want to be. You don't want to feel like you've settled in your life, that you've settled in your career, that there's no hope for the things that you want out of your life and your career. And if you do feel like that, that's a sign that you stayed too long, right? And what I want to share with you is that there's a fix for those signs, right? If you are a professional who is really struggling with your mental health, you feel anxious and depressed and overwhelmed and anxiety ridden when it comes to work doesn't have to be like that, right? Like, I think that sometimes we think that, oh, that's just how work is, or that's just how this industry is, or that's just how this company is, or that's just how my boss is, and I just have to put up with it and suck it up because that's just how it is. And that's just a lie, right? That's just a lie. You don't have to put up with it. You don't have to suck it up. You don't have to, make it work and just put your head down and figure that this is your plight in life, right? Like, there is help for that. And as a mentor, I help high achieving professional women move from where they are to where they want to be, to help them position themselves for more healthy working environments where they aren't constantly battling a mental health struggle to do good work in the world. So that's a space where you need support. I'm accepting new mentees right now, and I'd be happy to serve you. You can go right to my website at mentor-me.org. That's mentor-me.org. Again, mentor-me.org to schedule a call with me today. That call is at no cost. It's an opportunity for me to learn more about you, learn more about what's going on in your life and in your career, and for us to identify a plan to help you move forward in your career. So if that's something that you would benefit from, make sure you go to my website, again, mentor-me.org, to schedule a call. So next, we're going to talk about the physical implications of staying too long, right? So we talked about the mental health implications, right? The mindset implications, the thoughts that might be running through your head if you stayed in a job too long. But now I want to talk about the physical implications, like the body implications of staying in a job too long, because it can have real impacts on your physical health as well, right? Like the body that you're in, it can have real impacts on that. And I think that that's something that's not talked about as much. I think that, for somebody who's kind of in tune with themselves, they can tell mentally when they've checked out of a job, when they're depressed, when they're annoyed with a job, when they feel defeated by a job, when they don't feel fulfilled by a job. They can recognize those mental health implications, but the physical ones are, I think, a little bit more subtle. You don't always notice them. And I want to talk about what that kind of looks like at work. So number one, I think that it often has to do with fatigue, right? So if you're constantly fatigued due to a lack of sleep and an increased stress due to work, that's a physical indicator that you stayed in a job too long, because it's beginning to physically impact your health, right? You can't sleep. You're up all night. You're worried. You're stressed. You're anxiety ridden. You're jumpy. You're moody. You're anxious. You feel overwhelmed constantly, right? If those are symptoms that you're having, if those are experiences that you're having, that's a physical response to having stayed in a job that's no longer serving you too long. Right? And who can relate, right? Throw some hearts up on the screen if you are triggered by your email dinging, right? Or, every time someone sends you a Slack or a Teams message, you're just like rolling your eyes, or you're defensive constantly because of the work environment that you work in. You work with a boss or supervisor who's overbearing and not multitasker, but a micromanager, excuse me. And you constantly feel jumpy and anxious and overwhelmed by any time you have to engage with them. Like, if that's what's happening in your body, that's a physical response as a sign that you stayed in a job too long, that you've overstayed your welcome, that you've outgrown this role, this organization, this industry, right? And just throw some hearts up on the screen if you've ever experienced that, whether it's in your current role or if it's in a former role, right? Where you've experienced physical responses to things at work. Maybe you get nervous or anxious, you start sweating, your palms get sweaty, your upper lip starts sweating when you're called into a meeting with your boss. If you're having physical reactions to things that are happening at work, that may be a sign that it's time to move on, right? Another physical implication that I've often seen in my mentees is that it impacts on their weight, right? So maybe you started to gain an unhealthy amount of weight due to a lack of time. You have to make healthy meals for yourself and for your family. You're in the office super early trying to get things done. You skip snacks and meals because, you're working through lunch. You don't get home till 8:00 at night. So you have to eat dinner at 10. And, now you're, eating carb-filled quick meals, fast food late at night, because of the stress of work. If your work is so overwhelming, if it's so demanding, if it's gotten you to the point that you can't be well, you can't make healthy meals for yourself, you can't make healthy snacks for yourself, you have trouble just being well because work is so overwhelming, that's a physical indicator that you stayed too long, right? A physical indicator that this role is not serving you in a healthy way, right? And I've seen this time and time again. And in fact, it's happened to me personally where, I have to be in the office super early, so I skip breakfast. And then I have a lunch meeting, so I can't get to lunch. And then I have a late night program and they're serving pizza and wings. And so I eat that and I don't get to eat dinner with my family. And so I've basically starved myself all day. Then by the time I get, a meal in the evening, it's, fried foods, or it's a whole lot of carbohydrates. It doesn't have any, healthy proteins or, any vegetables or fruit or, healthy grains or legumes, right? There's nothing that can kind of fuel my body. And then I go home and I'm tired, I'm fatigued, and I'm irritable because I haven't eaten all day. And I finally got to eat, I could only eat a little because it was still a work event, right? All these compounding indicators. And then, because I am so busy at work, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to move my body. And those are compounding indicators to just real challenges in being healthy and being well. So if that resonates with you, know that you're not alone, but know that is a sign that you stayed too long. And I think on the flip side of that, sometimes I see women losing an unhealthy amount of weight, right? Because they started to skip meals to catch up on work projects. They don't have time to eat. They don't have time to take care of themselves. They don't have time to work out. They don't have time to go to the Zumba class or get in that swimming, class that they want. They just don't have the time because, the work is so stressful, it's so overwhelming, and it's so demanding. And so if these are things that you're experiencing, right? If you're experiencing physical and mental indicators as responses to stressful, overwhelming overbearing, underpaying jobs, then that's a sign that you stayed too long. But the truth is that there is help for this. You don't have to just stay there. You don't have to just put your head down and do the work and, just try to push through. Perseverance does not have to be your plight. It does not have to be your story. As a mentor, my job is to help high achieving professional women understand how to use their skills, their talent, their expertise, their degrees, their credentials, their certification, their years of experience, the work that they've done over their lifetime to really position them to have fulfilling careers that won't stress them out, that won't have them under eating, that will allow them work-life harmony to be able to integrate all of the things that they want to do in their lives. That's my job. My job is to help my mentees do just that. And so if that sounds like what you're looking for, if you're looking for support in advancing your career, I'm here to serve you. I'm excited to help you. You can go again right to my website at mentor-me.org to schedule a call with me. I'm accepting new mentees and I look forward to serving you. If it is a priority for you to make more money, have more impact, and have a fulfilling career in the new year, the time for you to start on that journey is now. And I look forward to walking alongside you in it. Again, you can go right to my website at mentor-me.org and I look forward to serving you. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.